Hey, Shalom. First, I would like to give all praise, honor, and glory to Yahweh in the name of Yahweh Shai. Double honors to the apostles and elders of Great Millstone. Please send blessings to the hopeful at the house of David. Let's get into this. One moment. All right. Now, what I want to go into is, respecting our elders. And by that is respecting the order, because Yahweh Shem Shai picked certain men in certain places, like the apostles, the apostles. They picked them men in their place because, that's who he chose to pit there, And we're, he has them as our heads, and they look after our souls, They look after Israel, So, because they're our elders, we're supposed to, not grieve them, not grieve them, And when you have people falling out, being a demon, falling out, trying to say they're on the same level as them when you haven't even been on this earth as long as them, even less teaching as long as them. They're just showing a lot of disrespect. They're just showing a lot of disrespect. You trying to you go and get them cursed out, but people, you try to demonize them. You try to say they're not the authority anymore, but you are, because you've somehow gained all this riches, all this other stuff, all these accolades, and you believe that is what Yahweh Shem Shai is looking at. No. Yahweh Shem Shai is looking at the character. He don't care about the money. He don't care about what your status is on earth. He is about the character. And he placed people with certain characteristics in certain positions. And we're not to buck up at those positions, I won't get into the law about all that, Listen, this is Leviticus chapter 19, verse 32. Thou shalt rise up before the hoary head and honor the face of the old man, and fear thy power. I am Yahweh. Thou shalt what? Rise up before the hoary head. That's your old men, the old men. Your aged men, men of understanding, men of wisdom. You're supposed to what? When it's stand up and saying, you basically giving the honors. You give honors. You can't be saying, like, you open up in your video, you saying giving double honors to the apostles and the elders, Once after you say that, you be a demon, start cursing them out. You start, you're not listening to what they're saying. You try to treat them that like you're on their level, or like they're your little boy. Nah, you already messed up. You already messed up. You know? We're not supposed to do that. You know? Listen, this is Proverbs. Because if but before I get that, because if there wasn't honoring man, Yahweh Shema Shah would have already exposed them. Like he exposes some of these young leaders, these young rebels, these leaders of rebels. You know, he already exposed the unicorn on high. You know, that pirate. You know, he already exposed Big Nate. You know, how he you know, contradicts himself in doctrine. You know, the Most High made him you know, the Most High exposed that. You know, the Most High exposed a lot of these Hebrew Israelite camp leaders that are of, you know, a corruptible character. That has corruptible characters. You know, and if the apostles of GMS had that, Yahweh Shema Shah would expose that as well. You know? But what? They've been standing. Sure, you have false witness against them, but Scripture says that was going to happen. People going to lie on you, or bear false witness against you. You know. The only thing they can try to bring up is the grape doctrine, doctrine. When there is laws, when that is in the book on how to proceed, if that would happen. Nobody was saying, hey, y'all should go out and go start, you know, graping women. Nah. They just getting scripture says, hey, this happens. If that were to happen, we have laws on that. That's it. And people were so disgruntled about it that they went against Yahweh Shema Shai. The apostles didn't write that down in all scriptures. It was Yahweh Shema Shai that allowed his men to write that down and put it in the book that we have today that we call the Bible. You know? Y'all don't want to go against that, you know? This is Proverbs chapter 16, verse 31. Listen, the hoary head is a crown of glory if it be found in the way of righteousness. You see? That's why I said, you know, a wise old man, because you can have some hoary, you can have some elders, but they ain't wise, you know. They ain't no elder, they just elderly, you know. They ain't no elder, they just elderly. You see a lot of that, especially among our people. You have some of these elderly folks that you know, walk around, talk about how they used to do something to somebody's wife. How they be you know, trying to move and dress like a YN, still trying to move and dress like a YN. You know, talking about how, just a bunch of nonsense. You see, that's what scripture says. If it be found in the ways of righteousness, if that old man, his 80 years be found in righteousness, you know, his wisdom come from the scriptures. His wisdom come from Yahweh Shema Shai. Then that aged man is all, you know, is honorable, is wise. And when we have our apostles, you know, we have our apostles. This is Proverbs 20, verse 29. Listen, the glory of the young man is their strength, and the beauty of the old man is the gray head. Just laying back on the point. You see? The beauty of an old man is the gray head. These men made it. They seen a lot. They all obtained a lot of wisdom. They seen a lot of things. So we should take their advice. They're not teaching you on how to be a nigga, how to be a sinner, how to be contrary to Yahweh Shem Shai. Nah, they're teaching you how to please the Yahweh Shem Shai, how we should move, what to be aware of, what we can and can't do for our soul salvation, Listen to this. Come on. This is Exodus chapter 20, verse 12. Listen, honor thy father and thy mother, that the days that days may be long upon the land which the Lord thy power giveth thee. You know what? The apostles, what is our spiritual godfather, and godmothers. What scripture says? He that Yahweh told us people when he said, "Who's my mother and who's my brethren?" These has followed the same doctrines as I is the same as my mother, my brother, and my father. Roughly paraphrasing. We do that. We give them honors and stuff like that. You'll be good inside of Yahweh Shem Shai. As scripture, as we always say, keep the law, statutes, and commandments to the best of your ability. This is Slop. This is Ecclesiasticus. Verse 1. Listen. Hear me, your fathers, O children, and do after, that ye may be safe. This is talking about your father, your extra father, but those our spiritual fathers, our spiritual grandfathers, because what? They would teach us on how to conduct ourselves, on which way to go, so what? We can be safe. Safe from who? Safe from the evil of this world, but also safe from Yahweh Shem Shai. We don't want to get out them guidelines and get hit. Hear me, your fathers, O children, and do thereafter, that ye may be safe. For the Lord have given the fathers honor over the children, and have confirmed the authority of the mother over the sons. Respect your parents, man. Respect your parents. That's what a lot of disobedience stems from. That's what it stems from. At first, there's disobedience to your parents. Being a demon to your parents. You have bad blood with them. The scriptures honor your mother and thy father, but you have really, really bad blood with them. Get the hell away from them. You know, get the hell away from me. You know, move away. You know, be respectful. Move away. Shoot, you ain't gotta be around them. You know. You know. Shoot. It'll be bad for you, man. It'll be bad for you. You know, you don't want to, cause all that stuff. You know how children these days talk to their parents like they be friends, like they equals and stuff like that. That behavior stems out into the world on how they'll address the workplace. They'll address other people's parents, other people's elders. You know, and what? That's how you'll speak to the apostles now. Especially if you haven't especially if you don't try to keep it in check. You know, jumping down to verse 12. Listen, my son, help thy father in his age, and grieve him not as long as he liveth. You know, he said, don't grieve him not as long as he liveth. Don't grieve your parents, but also with the other scripture that parallel to this, roughly paraphrase, it says, don't grieve those that are over you. Crap. Don't grieve those that are over you, because, Yahweh Shema Shah gonna take note of that, you know? Yahweh Shema Shah gonna take note of that, you know? You don't want them like, man, this nigga, man, this Jake, man. You don't want your else's, come, think or say that to you each time you pop up, because you grieving them. Nah. Yahweh Shema Shah said, don't do that. Be aware of that. You know? Jumping on to verse 14. For the relieving of the father shall not be forgotten, and instead of sin, it shall be added to build thee up. You know? It's gonna build you up. You ain't relieving them, so they'll rather have you around them, and if you around them, what you gonna obtain that wisdom. You gonna obtain that wisdom, that mercy. They might want to have you. They might want you around them even more. You know, you get to soak up that wisdom. You know, learn more, or just be in good standings. You know. So yeah. This went on longer than I thought. Yeah. But yeah, we got to be aware of those things. We want to honor those our elders, those of wisdom, those who have the wisdom and righteousness. You know, not that that cornball wisdom. You know, that barbershop wisdom. Nah, that real wisdom. That wisdom from on high, that wisdom of Yahweh Shem Shai, you know. So with that, I hope you was edified. Again, I want to give all praise, honor, and glory to Yahweh in the name of Yahweh Shai. Double honors to the apostles and elders of Great Millstone. Peace and blessings to the whole elect, the house of David. Until next time, Yahweh willing, Shalom.